All right, boys and girls, this video is how to color one-point perspective. So when I came back and looked at some projects that were done in here, people were leaving the tops of the shapes white, which I said to do, and then the side was just consistent one color. And I know I said monochromatic as well, but let me show you a way that we're gonna use two values of the same color. So I'm gonna use like a light blue and a dark blue, and I'm going to create a lot more dimension on the sides of these shapes. So basically, when we go through, let me zoom in here for 1 second. If you're just looking at the spaces, like the side spaces, as their own individual space, we want each one of those to stand out. So on the star here, I'm going to start off with this one being light, and then dark, light, dark, okay? So if I just kind of think in that way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to color this space light. Sorry, let me zoom out. Can't see what I'm doing, can you? Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to color this one light. I'm just going to do a nice, flat, solid color all the way over this shape. I would color right up to the edge of my star because we want it to look like the top of the star is getting the most amount of color and then that the sides are getting more shadows, okay? Or, sorry, the most amount of light and then the sides are getting shadows. So this blue tone is going to create my shadows. Obviously, you'd want to do this going all the way down. Let's say you're doing like a purple colored pencil and you don't have a light and dark purple. Well, then what you'll have to do is you'll just hit the color light on one side and darker on the other. I think that's what I did on my green one. I'll show you my green example in just a minute. You can get rid of your letters if you want, or just draw those letters really, really lightly so you remember what goes where. Or I even saw one of my really smart students, Kayla, was going in and she was actually just marking these with her colored pencils. So she would just go in and be like, okay, this is a dark space, this is a light space, and she kind of like just doodled over what color they were supposed to be, which was a really smart idea, Kayla. Nice work. Anyway, so now I'm going to go in on this one. I'm going to color pretty dark with my dark blue. And hopefully when all is said and done, this area will look darker, that area will look lighter. And what it'll do is it'll make it look like these planes of the star are facing different directions. And whenever you have planes facing different directions, well, not right now because I have so many light sources on, but you see how one is in the light and one is in the shadow? Same should happen whenever you're looking at the edge of a star or the edge of a rectangle. So then I go through and color that whole one dark blue. This whole shape here would be dark blue as well. I'd color all the way up to the edge of my star, really nice and neat, leaving 0 white spaces. And the grade that's doing this, sorry, is 5th grade in my class. And so 5th grade, when we're using colored pencils, you can be so precise with colored pencils. There's really no excuse to be leaving a whole bunch of white spaces unless we're just being lazy and we're just rushing through the project. So then my light space would be here. And if you want to emphasize that light and dark, you can color lightly with the light blue as well. And then you really start to see the difference between planes. Now geometric shapes like the star and this kind of geometric shape back here are pretty straightforward. It's just going to be a light side, a dark side, a light side, a dark side, a light side, a dark side, so that you can really see the difference between those planes, okay? Sorry, let me just bring these light blues a little further down so you guys can see what that would look like. Okay, now when you get to curving shapes, it becomes a little bit more complicated. On a circle like this, it's not really that complicated. On the circle, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start in dark on the edges and fade lighter towards the center, all the way down, okay? Another thing I said on the last video I made is that what you guys could do is you could go over the bottom with a little bit of black over whatever color you're using and really emphasize that like being farther away from you. But you don't have to do that. You could just do it dark in whatever color you're using. So on the circle, what's going to happen, any cylinder shape, it usually gets less shadow off towards the edges, or less light, excuse me, and then it gets more light towards the center, so it's going to get lighter. So I'm going to make sure that these edges right here are dark, and that center part will be light. So I'm going to come in with my light blue and just have this guy kind of fade in. Not too difficult to comprehend on the circle. It's literally just going to be darker on the edges, lighter at the center. We can handle that, right? When you get to shapes like this, like the paint splotch shape, I know a lot of my students did that in class because I was challenging them with those shapes. So what we're going to do with those paint splatter shapes is we're going to treat it like multiple cylinders. So instead of just like one, sorry, if you have eraser shavings under there, it'll leave marks, so watch out for that. So instead of just having one, this one now has like 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of cylinder shapes, and this one's kind of going the opposite direction. So on this guy, it's pretty straightforward right here. It's just going to be darker on the edges,
and then I'm going to fade lighter at the center, okay? This guy over here is going to be kind of the opposite because we have this dip that curves in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dark shadow that kind of goes down through the middle. You don't have to draw this in with your ruler. I'm just going to shade it that way. This one over here is going to be dark on this edge. Fade lighter as it goes over that way, kind of like that. And then I'm going to have another shadow that's kind of created like in this inside zone right here and goes down, okay? You still kind of want this shape to look like light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, kind of like that, okay? I'm going to actually mute it and try and finish coloring in this shape so you can see what I guys. So you can see how I tried to go back and forth light, dark, and then on the curvy ones I tried to do more of a gradation where it was like dark on the edge, light towards the center, dark in this cavity in here, lighter towards the area where it juts out. This one kind of the same deal, a little bit darker in here, a little bit lighter towards the edge. And again, I wanted to stay lighter towards this edge so that this dark shape behind it would stand out. So I just want you to think as you're coloring, how could I make all these planes stand out and not blend together? You don't want these like from plane to plane to plane. You don't want those to blend, okay? As I go on and start coloring in the background now, I have this light plane back here. So I'd probably want to come in with a dark blue to do this space. Oops, colored over my star a little bit. So I'm going to do this one in a really dark plane so that the plane of the star looks like it's in front of this guy going towards the back, which it should look like it's in front of that. That guy's farther behind. It's being overlapped by the star. So the star should look like it's in front of. A way you can help emphasize that sense of space even more in those shadows is, like I said, you can go over with a black colored pencil. Now, if you're using lighter colors, like if your shapes are orange and yellow, I wouldn't recommend using black on those. For an orange and yellow, I might go in with a red to make those shadows a little bit darker. If you're doing like a red-pink blend, maybe you could go in with a purple. But since blue and purple are like the darker shades, if you're doing blue and purple, you could go in with a black down here at the bottom and just kind of fade upward. In fact, I might do a dark blue over those light blue areas because you really want to make this bottom area look like it's getting farther away from you. And if these white shapes are receiving the most amount of light, then surely this part that's really, really far away would be receiving the least amount of light, okay? So I'm gonna go up, I'm just gonna bring that black a little bit up into here so I can really make that area look shadowed. By the way, if you did green shapes, I'd recommend dark blue for your shadows. That'll help create a look like they're, you know, not receiving as much light, a little bit more shadowed. I'm going to do some black over this area. And I'm not doing black over the entire shape. I don't want it to look like half of it's black, half of it's blue. I'm just doing black right along the edges. And then I'm going to kind of have that black fizzle out into the blue so it still looks like maybe just a really dark version of blue. Let's see if I can erase that a little bit. If you have tiny little marks on the front of your shapes like I do and they're bothersome, we could always go in with a tiny bit of white out with that later, but it did kind of erase. I got a little aggressive on this shape too and kind of colored over the front a bit. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to emphasize the space and the three-dimensionality when we color, not make things look flat. Good luck, guys.